Hi, this is Bill Crumbaker, your Master Certified Negotiation Expert. Uh, Today I'd like to talk about two costly buyer mistakes um, that I've seen buyers make over the years. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the buying process. And most agents that have been in the business for a while have established a team that they put together to help them along the way with a particular transaction or sale. Now, all these people that are on the team are experts in their field. So you have like a loan officer who is responsible for getting the financing done in a timely fashion. You have the escrow agent who's going to do all the paperwork and provide the closing documents so we can actually close the transaction. You're going to have a title rep and a title officer that are going to make sure that the title's delivered free and clear. All these experts are very crucial, and they form a great team. Now, my team is a very extraordinarily strong team, and it has to be that way, in my opinion, because actually my income really depends on how good of a job they perform. Um, So my loan officer, I'd like to talk about loan officers today. My loan officer, his name is Brian Brinkley, and I've worked with Brian now for over 20 years. And Brian is an extremely experienced loan officer. He's seen countless different financing situations. He's worked from first-time buyers to corporations that are buying, commercial property and worth millions of dollars, because he actually owned his own commercial firm for a number of years as well. So he's an expert in commercial financing. He's an expert in all types of conventional financing and FHA and VA. Now, the reason why I like using an expert is somebody like Brian can anticipate problems, and he already knows the solution to those problems because of his vast amount of experience. And the same is true for all the people that I use. Um, but I have seen buyers make two major mistakes. And the first one is they often think that all loan officers are the same, and they aren't. And this leads to another decision that they make that I think is probably oftentimes very costly. Because they think that all loan officers are the same, if they see another lender advertising a lower interest rate, they oftentimes will go with another lender right in the middle of a transaction. And this can be disastrous because if the loan officers, say if the loan officer is just about ready to get them approved through underwriting, the single most important thing that a buyer can do, in my opinion, if he wants to have a negotiation advantage over other buyers, is to have his loan completely underwritten. Because what that does is it allows him to compete with a all cash offer, and both of them can close in about the same time. The only difference is in an all cash offer you don't have to have an appraisal, but if the buyer were willing to pay the difference in the event that the property didn't appraise, they could compete just as well with a all cash offer. You can close in about the same amount of time. There's really no other advantage other than the all cash offer. You don't have to have an appraisal. But if the person wants to buy their dream home and they make this switch of lenders during this time, it could be they could have just lost out on their dream home, because the thing that would make the biggest difference would be if their loan were actually underwritten. And unfortunately, what happens is they don't really understand how to compare loans. So many times you see, if you look around, you can see lenders offering lower interest rates. But what you don't know is that those lower interest rates are going to cost you a lot more money to get, because you're going to have to buy the interest rate down. You're going to have to pay for it by buying the interest rate down. So what you need to do in that situation is you need to look at the what we call the APR. That's called the annual percentage rate. That's how you can compare different loans to find out who actually has the best rate, and it's through the APR. And any good loan officer will tell you that the first thing you need to do is look at the APR if you want to compare interest rates. The other thing that I think is really important is that so often what will happen is that the people will switch lenders, and oftentimes they'll get a lender that's not as experienced, not as knowledgeable, maybe in the end not able to perform in time. And if they're not able to perform in time, not only do you lose your loan in your dream house, but you also lose the cost of the appraisal and maybe the cost of a home inspection. And this can be very costly because the buyer didn't make a good decision. So what I tell my buyers, the smart thing to do when you meet with your loan officer is make him aware that you're going to be very loyal to him. And this is a really smart decision on your part, because if you do, the loan officer knows he's going to get paid for all of his hard work. So what that means is if there's a time crunch or whatever, he needs to work overtime, needs to go the extra mile in order to make things happen, he's willing to do it for you because you've pledged your loyalty to him. And he's going to go that extra mile for you. And that's why it's a really smart decision to do that. The other thing I think it's important to realize is that in the buying process, I mentioned we have sort of like a chain, and you, the buyer, become an important part of the chain. And one of the things that I've seen buyers oftentimes do that's really not in their interest, it's really a bad thing to do, is to not really get the documentation and whatever their lender requests in a timely fashion. And this can lead to basically a transaction falling apart if it's an extreme situation. But you don't want to be the weakest link in the chain. You want to be one of the strongest links in the chain. And we want everybody to be strong because we're looking for hassle-free, great transaction where everybody gets most of everything that they want and need. And that way to do that is for everybody to do their jobs to the best of their ability. So I advise all my buyers to pledge that loyalty to their lender. Make sure you get your documentation to them in a timely fashion. And if you do, you're going to find that you're going to have a really smooth transaction. Everything's going to go very smoothly, and you're going to be really happy with the outcome because you're going to get that dream home that you really wanted to get. And remember, most of the time, I think most buyers don't realize how important the loan officer is, because what I do, especially if we're it's really important if you're in a multiple offer situation, but I have my lender, Brian, talk with either the seller or the listing agent, or maybe both of them, and kind of present you, the buyer, in the best light so that they feel totally comfortable knowing that they've got buyers that are as good as gold and the transaction is going to close. And that kind of relationship with the lender having a great reputation and agents feeling really comfortable with him, and which actually makes sellers feel comfortable with him, can lead to a closed transaction. And that's what we're looking for. So I hope you've learned some valuable information here. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell to be notified for my next negotiation video.